Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Stephen Goldberg of Optimus Performance, and today I'm pleased to have a special guest, Allyns Melendez. I got to check my notes. I don't want to mess that up. Allyns is the CEO at HR Transformed. You founded the company, right?
Correct.
You did. Okay. And
Mhm.
today we're going to talk about culture barriers and conflict, navigating employee relations through everyday leadership. And this is the topic that Allyns had proposed. And I thought, wow, this is a great topic and something very important for every company to learn about and understand and see how uh, people can get inspired to uh, implement this somehow into their organizations. So, Allyns, tell us a little bit about your company and what you do and what are some of your typical clients, the size of them, and so on and so forth.
Great. Well, thanks for having me, Stephen. HR Transformed was built from just a day-to-day need of small and mid-sized businesses to get HR support. And that support comes in several ways. So sometimes it's just, I need someone to handle our benefits administration, or I need someone to help us run payroll. We have a lot of hourly employees or overtime to pay. So we have our core service, which is HR outsourcing, so anywhere from payroll processing, benefits admin, performance management, onboarding, offboarding. And then we also offer recruiting and coaching and corporate training. So we're sort of like your HR in your back pocket, especially for small, mid-sized businesses where it doesn't make sense for them to hire a full-time person, but they just need the help on a daily basis. Um, and we step in and help, and we help the larger organizations by stepping in when they're devoid of some HR assistance. Maybe people are on leave of absences, or they just want us to specialize in one thing, like investigations or things like that. So we come in when you need that sort of people help, people solutions.
Great. So let me just get into this topic with you, but I just want to read what you sent as a description for the topic. Uh, Not every leader has a title. We're going to unpack how everyday behavior shapes employee relations and spotlight the quiet culture carriers who influence teams behind the scenes. From handling tough conversations to modeling emotional intelligence, we'll talk about the signals that indicate strong internal leadership and how those signals can make or break a workplace during moments of tension. Tell me how you came to propose this topic.
So there are so many times where we're brought in to do culture surveys or engagement surveys, or we find out in an exit interview that there's a click or that leadership isn't really working for them, for the staff, or that there's training issues. Like, I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm a new manager. My voice isn't being heard. My team isn't paying attention to me. They seem to pay attention to their peers rather than me as a new leadership member. So we get all this feedback and then we start kind of digging in and we get data. So once we get data, that comes, like I said, in the form of surveys and also exit interviews and also having conversations with the leadership. And we find out that these culture carriers, especially the quiet ones, may not have been the person that you put in leadership. Could be the person you put in leadership, could be the CEO, could be the vendor that you hired that works on marketing. And it could be the person that is extremely disgruntled in the employee staff base that kind of goes unnoticed by leadership, but maybe very noticed by the rest of the staff or the peers. So, in all those conversations and reviewing all the data, we just find that the companies have to pay attention to who has the most signal strength. And I've talked about this before of we all kind of emit this signal. And this signal can be something very positive and motivating and encouraging for a culture, or it can be very negative and pessimistic and misleading for people. You know, if I walked around and I was very popular at my job, right? Like I made a lot of friends and maybe I was a leadership member, maybe I'd been there for 10 years. And I walked around saying, well, you really shouldn't listen to the CEO. They really don't know what they're talking about. They're so disconnected. People are going to really listen because my signal strength, by nature of what I just explained, is very strong. Whereas if I'm someone who is a culture carrier because they gave me a title of maybe head of people or the president of a company, I may not have the same message. I might be trying to encourage positivity and problem solving and moving forward, but someone else might be emitting another signal that might be stronger than mine because of what I talked about and how embedded they are in the culture. So I see this so often that I kind of talk about, yes, it does trickle down from the top, right? Everyone models behavior in the workplace. That's how we learn. Before COVID, it was the only way we learned. After COVID, we picked up signals in Slack and how people talk to each other, or Teams, how people message each other, how they share information, if they send fun memes during the day, if they say good morning to each other, or if they're in the office and they see each other in the restroom, if they acknowledge each other. There's all these things that we learn. And when we're in a hybrid work environment, or we're in an environment where there's some people who are really creating relationships online or in person, we need to know who these people are with this strong signal strength so that we make sure that their message is what is intended for that company. And not only does it start from the top, like I said, of those behaviors being modeled, but it absolutely is being modeled by those very strong signal throwers, those culture carriers I talked about.
So what you're saying is it's not necessarily somebody with a leadership role or a leadership title, but it's just somebody that kind of like just steps into a leadership role at a specific time to kind of like promote this culture that they fit in really well. And they
Right. And
want to see
they
that being propagated for the benefit of the company and people working there.
Exactly. It doesn't have to have a leadership title. It
Right.
literally is a leadership role. And it could be an intern. It can be someone who is at a very junior level in terms of skill and experience. But in terms of being a culture leader, a culture carrier, they might be someone at the top of that pyramid.
Yeah. So how do you see this person, um, and you probably have examples that you could share. Do you have one of one of your clients where you saw this unfolding, and could you tell us a story around that so we can kind of visualize that?
Yeah, so I did an engagement survey, I'd say about a decade ago, close to a decade ago. And there was a lot of mention of how very helpful and how instrumental this one person was in their development. And it wasn't a person that was in a leadership capacity, and it wasn't a person who was tasked to help someone else develop. They were in a completely different department. And I thought it was really interesting that this person was a go-to because of word of mouth. Hey, if you really want to know how this works, ask this person. And when they went to this person was warm and inviting and open with their information and vulnerable and helpful. And what happened is that that person, even though they weren't in leadership and they were in a completely different department than what was at the core of the business, became very important for that culture. And so what we started to do was highlight that person a little bit more, recognize them a little bit more for giving themselves into that leadership capacity and really encouraging the staff. So, and then on the flip side, we had learned a lot about in a different survey that I did and a different client that I did. We had learned a lot about what happens when that signal being sent or emitted by that person was very, very negative and very toxic and very visible. And so employees were a little bit fearful of sharing that person's name, but they did not hesitate to share their experience of how it was working with this person and how they were sort of enlisting others to behave in that same way. And the culture became a bit toxic for anyone new that joined the organization. And so what we did was we tried to kind of go in and say, I'm going to level with you. we're hearing this. And there may not be any truth to it from your perspective, but I want to share what the truth is to other people that work here. And I want to find a way to turn this around with your help. So it wasn't an attack of saying you're terrible, you're miserable, you're making people really upset, but yet you do this great job and your output is what we need and you're a high performer. But we need to sort of bring them in and say, this is having an impact on other people. And that's their truth. So I want to hear from you and get your ideas on how we can turn this around.
Well, that's a good way to approach
Oh,
a
yeah.
person. But you're talking about two different people here, right?
Right. Two
So
different people. I gave you other end.
one is a flag bearer for the company for
Yeah.
solidifying and propagating the culture that you want people to, um, I guess, support and act accordingly. And the other one is somebody that's just creating conflict.
Right. And both may have the same signal strength. So I sort of
Okay.
represented them as having the same sort of strength, ability to reach a certain amount of people and make an impact, one on a positive sense and the other one on a very negative sense. So it can really vary. But these are the people that carry the culture. And these are the people that make or break their people, other folks' day to day.
So you're describing two different behaviors, but both with, I would say, kind of like high influencers in the company,
Right.
high potential influencers that
Right.
uh, other people listen to or watch and maybe will, uh, be motivated to behave in that same way. Um, do these, are there certain personality types that typically these like are they more extroverts? Are they more affirmative types, or how? Or it could be anybody. Do you
It
have
could
any?
be
Yeah.
anybody. It
Okay.
could be anybody. The visibility of the sort of high social, high communicative social personalities, you hear them and see them first.
Okay.
The other folks, because they're a bit more patient and methodical in their approach with folks, with other people, or in the workplace, they're going to show up a bit differently, but they're not far behind, right? So usually in the behavioral style, if you are very highly communicative and very social, usually the first person to raise their hand and start speaking, usually the first person to give a solution, usually the first person that you hear from. And there's still ideas and things coming from the other personalities. And again, by virtue of maybe their position or their level of authority at a certain company, will get that stage prior to someone who may be more exuberant or more sociable. But when there's tension, tying it back to what I had summarized as something we wanted to talk about, when there are moments in an organization that is high tension, maybe you lost a lot of clients, maybe there is a big shakeup in the staff, maybe there is a big launch or an initiative that really changes the way a day-to-day works. When those moments happen in a workplace, you have to enlist the assistance of those culture changers, right? Like these culture carriers who have the ability to shift the culture in certain directions. So bringing it back to even somebody's first day, that person is a culture carrier as well. All of a sudden, there's this new person. All of a sudden, this person is bringing a new flavor into the mix, right? And so, what's their signal strength day one? It depends. If I hired a new CEO of my company, their strength automatically is going to be strong. If I hired a new intern, not as strong. Depending on how they show up, they're going to create this change in that organizational structure, right? So I always stay away from, we're not going to fit in the culture. We're going to create some new culture because of all this new flavor coming in, right? But when there is this like massive shift of tension in an organization, who are those people that have signal strength, that are carrying your culture? Are you next to them? These are anchors, right? These are the people that like shift everything. Culture carriers, change makers, they carry forth the sentiment of what your business is going to look like. People will work harder for others who are really engaged in that culture and really being positive and moving things forward, encouraging. So when there is tension, make sure as a business owner, as a leader, that you understand who those people are with that strong signal strength and that they are then emitting the message you want and amplifying that message with the right sentiment. So if it is something that it's very sad, something very sad happens at an organization. At one organization once, we had an employee who passed away, and the signal strength wasn't going to be, but this is positive. We're going to do great. It's okay if this person passed away. No, that's not what we want. We want someone who's going to deliver the message in the right way. So those culture carriers have to be very well known by all of leadership in the organization, no matter what level they are, and also very aligned with what behaviors they should exhibit when they are sending messages forward or talking with staff about different things. And again, could be a non-leadership member, could be a leadership member. Tension also has to do with how do we all get along? So if I'm in a meeting with my coworker, my peer, my direct report, and I am constantly talking ill of leadership, then I'm creating this culture of tension because they want to feel bought into leadership. They want to be bought into the vision and the mission of the organization. This person may have a lot of signal strength and may be delivering this negative message. Or on the flip side, this person like drinks the Kool-Aid, they say, right? This is a person who is always going to say leadership's decisions are always something that they balance very carefully, or everything is done in the best interest of the company, but also they're a for-profit company. Like leveraging and aligning those messages are really important, especially in times of tension.
Sorry, just hang on a second. All of a sudden, my Word document just opened on its own. I didn't do anything.
What's
Um,
happening?
AI, right? Let's blame
I
AI.
know. I know.
Um, so, we use the word engagement, you use the word engagement. So, and you do engagement surveys, and you uncover these things through your, I guess, investigation, your observation. You seem um, uh, very knowledgeable about that. And you observe when these influencers um, are are coming forth, I guess, in organizations. So when we go back to engagement, are these people, they're highly engaged in the company. Why is that, do you think? Is it because they found a company that fits them? Is it because the job fits them and the company fits them? How would you describe that?
If I can sum it up in one word, it's
Yeah,
interest. Interest.
interest.
They have
Explain.
to be interested in their work,
Right.
interested in the mission and the vision of the organization, interested in the clients or the customers, interested in their own growth at that organization, interested in the people around them, get to know them and understand what makes them tick, and interested in the ups and downs of the professional work life. So I feel like that's the one word I would use to summarize how what drives their engagement. It would be interest because, why do people sit in and watch a movie? You can go on Netflix, there's like so many movies to choose from. But something piques your interest and keeps you watching that instead of, pressing pause and going back to your main window to find something different. So I'd sum it up to interest.
So interest, but on multiple levels, interest in their work, interested in the company, interested in the people that they're working with, is really it's multifaceted, not just one aspect of interest.
It is. And I think that if there's someone who's only interested in making money, they have to decide whether or not their current job is going to get them that. Or if they're just interested in making friends at work and feeling like part of a community, they have to decide whether or not that specific company delivers that for them.
So, it's really what you're saying is really interesting and important because you mentioned the word tension. And I think there's always tension at work. And when change is happening, like you mentioned, more tension arises. And you really need people, anchors, who will help everyone else ride through these tensions because it's ongoing, especially in today's world with, um, AI coming into the workplace more, the threat of, uh, how that's going to affect my career, just, the whole, um, difficulty in today's world of just growing your business and maintaining your place, your competitiveness. So all this and the more that the company wants to grow, the more potential tension there is that can be. So how do companies, if this is resonating with people listening, let's say business owners, how do they create a strategy to um, have more people become anchors and flag bearers, if you want to say, for the company to help the company maintain and grow the culture in a positive way.
It kind of ties back to what you do, Stephen. There are some personality types that really thrive under healthy tension, and maybe even more than just healthy tension, just a lot of tension, or they create tension by nature of their personality or by challenging other people. Like they love that sort of like push-pull in an organization. Then you have the other side of the spectrum that doesn't like any type of tension. They like predictability, they like things to stay in a certain way. So when there is tension in an organization, I would find value in analyzing who are my tension seekers and who are my tension avoiders, and how can I mix that in a healthy way so that the tension still feels healthy, but things are not avoided and things aren't overly changed. Because in an environment where you have too many of those folks who are like constantly changing things, they're innovators. They're, that sort of personality type that is just always looking to change something like, oh, we just launched this. Now we can do something different. Um, the people that have just stabilized are going to feel that tension again. So there's got to be a value to looking at the data, understanding your team and the personality of the team members that you have, and identifying when it is time to introduce even more tension or even more change. And when there is unhealthy tension, calling it out. I work with certain groups of people, and there is a teams of people that tend to hire folks that are just like them. It's one of those HR kind of things that we talk about, the just like me pitfall of hiring is that I feel connected to this person. They seem a lot like me. And what we should hire for is the role, obviously, but we're human, right? So humans tend to sort of lean towards oh, this person reminds me of me or feels like they're just like me. What happens in groups that are high tension or low tension seekers, they may hire people that are tension avoidant or tension seekers or that have that same sort of banter as them. So really looking across the organization to make sure that there is a mix of personality types that fits what they do. If they're a company that innovates 24/7, then those folks that seek stability and less change or do very poorly when change happens too quickly, they might struggle. What do you have in place for them? Or if you have an organization where things don't change as rapidly and there is no variety in what they do, then you're going to have to find a way to create some of that for them so that it doesn't disrupt the other people's workplace. So disruption is going to happen in an organization multiple times due to your group of people. You have to figure out what's the right mix for your particular company. How much change and how much tension are you willing to have all at the same time? There are Monday mornings, we're in HR. Sometimes HR can be extremely predictable, right? This is how we do things. This is what the law says. This is how files should be done. This is what an I-9 means. I can't take that, paper thing that you just gave me. I need your actual passport, not a fake one, right? Like there's things that are just what they are. Then we wake up on a Monday morning and everything has gone bonkers, right? Like change can happen in the HR world every single day and typically on a Monday morning. Resignations come in, things are just different. And then also what's happening in the world around us creates tension in people's personal lives and they bring that to work. And so, what if things are very tense at work and very tense at home or very tense in the world, and people don't know how to cope when they're trying to work together? So, the personality profile and how people engage and how they deal with conflict together in the workplace, creating the right mix and support and coping mechanisms within work is really, really important.
Yeah, and I think, I promote this concept, as you know, of fit for the job. And when you hire for fit, you're automatically creating diversity because, if you're hiring somebody for a customer service role, they tend to be more perhaps outgoing or people oriented. If you're hiring somebody in a tech role, that's in, let's say, software development, they tend to be often more logical, introverted. So you're going to get that mix. And, when you hire the right person for the job. So that leads me to the question, what about training and development to further this within a company? What do you see as would be training for this to, I guess, promote that type of um, culture bearer type influencer people?
I think you see this a lot too, Stephen. People like to learn about themselves
Yeah.
before they learn about other people and the organization. So I think that there should be some training and development around who am I in the workplace? How do people experience me? And how does that correlate into my team? Does it fit very well in terms of how others like to be led or like to be worked with? Or do I create tension in my own style? And again, tension is really good because that means that things are not just going to stay the same all the time. As we know, nothing can stay the same all the time. But the training and development around learning who they are and how other people experience them is important. And then after that, it would be how do I work best? How do I work best in a team of people that may be very much opposite of me, but we're all working towards the same mission? How do I bring my magic and appreciate the magic that somebody brings into the workplace? So those kind of team building workshops where there's these exercises where we can have a difficult conversation together, practice giving each other feedback, have fun with it, understand each other. Also understand and look for when our behaviors are under stress. Because when our behaviors are under stress, they're amplified. They can go to a level that really is either off-putting or not appropriate in certain circumstances, or it might just be what we needed, right? Like if I had somebody in sales who is a high communicator and I really want them to close this deal, and the other person on the other end is the type of person who likes a dinner and a happy hour, like then that will work under stress. But if you have someone who's going to peel away from that when they're stressed, it may not fit the need of the job right then. So understanding each other, understanding how we gel, how we work, and playing up to our strengths, but then recognizing when that strength has gone a little overboard and now has become something that is our strength under stress. So, and being on the lookout. I used to use a keyword with someone that I worked with. Um, every time she was going off the rails a little bit, I would virtually kick her under the table by just using a keyword. And that was our way of, like, on Zoom, virtually kind of telling each other, I think you need to stop going down that rabbit hole, or I think you need to just, pump the brakes. Some people are comfortable going, hey, Stephen, I think you should pump the brakes, right? Like some people are comfortable with that, but others want that subtleness. And so learning how we each work in that way is also very helpful.
So what you're saying is team development training with an emphasis on self-understanding, self-knowledge, and then how do I fit in with others? Working as a team would be something businesses should incorporate in their HR strategy.
100%. And not only that, it's fun. So
Right.
when do you get to have some fun at work? And also, it can really impact the bottom line.
Well,
So
some
that's
people
the
some
thing.
people find that threatening. Do you get faced with that at times? I'm sure you do.
Only when they use it as in a like in a way to make people feel bad, right? So it's like, oh, it's because you're a high communicator that you just can't shut up, right? Like it's one of those things. But we really encourage in training that we celebrate the strengths, and when there is too much information, then we can help the person dial it back.
So do you offer this type of training to your clients?
We do. We do personality assessments, and then we do an on-site with really fun exercises where we draw on boards and we emulate other styles, and we practice having conversations in other styles and working better with each other.
Hmm. So maybe we could kind of summarize uh, what can companies do to act on what your experience, your observations are in terms of uh, developing these anchors or influencers in their companies to promote a positive culture that reinforces, um, I guess, harmony or collaboration and to um, eliminate or reduce tension and conflict. So what would be
Um,
like kind of like a action steps, if you may?
I pull from my business background and my MBA because the business owner for a for-profit business wonders, well, why would I pay more money if this is not going to directly hit the bottom line? And the indirect costs of providing this insight to your staff is something that you can't really calculate with real numbers. But know that people, and you can find all the stats online, people who are engaged and interested and feel connected to the organization, their mission, their vision, and the other people that they work with, they work harder, they stay longer, there's better retention, and there's all those costs associated with keeping your people. Yes, their salary goes up every year. Yes, the benefits are always going to increase every year. Yet the taxes are going to be things that you have to deal with higher salaries. The cost of turning those people over and training someone new and getting that historical knowledge back that you now lost in that other person, there's a value to that. And so making sure that your staff is interested and excited and motivated by their team members and by your mission and vision is definitely something that these business owners need to focus on and do these types of trainings and get people to understand themselves. Because guess what? This organization doesn't happen in a silo. Every single person adds something to it. Like we said in the beginning, with that signal strength, they send those signals to your clients. Happy people, happy customers, happy clients, right?
So not every business owner is cognitive of this or tends to, promote these types of practices. What type of leader uh, do you need or what type of, I don't know, traits do they have to have or attitude or belief system to want to put this into a strategy, not just, have it as, oh, these great ideas, but how can I incorporate this into my strategy? What
I
type
think
of leader is required?
a balanced leader, one that recognizes that the contribution of their people does directly impact their bottom line, right? Those people who show up for work, the people that will go above and beyond for you, your customers, and your clients. The people really do make the business in a lot of companies, and especially in the service industry, which is where I primarily focus on. In the service industry, where these people are your message, it's your brand walking the streets, on the phone, over email. That is why you should prioritize really getting people to understand the role that they play in the organization and for you to understand the role that they play. Some business owners wonder, well, why do I have an issue with clicks? So I'm like, well, you took your eye off of it for a bit. There's someone in there who's sending this message that that's okay. You may not feel the same way, but there's someone in there. So get back in there and figure it out. It should be part of the strategy, the people strategy. It's definitely part of the business strategy.
Absolutely. Well, you sound like a true expert in this field. And if I had a team and if I was a business owner with a team, I would definitely be interested in hiring you. Do you have any resources you can make available to people, um, for free that they can read up more about this, a book or anything that you could share that I could put a link to?
Well, there will be a book. It's in the works, actually, Stephen, working on that. My website has a lot of information. We have our newsletter,
Okay.
and so you can sign up for our newsletter. We send out a newsletter, and it includes stories of things that are relevant on the HR side. We also have an HR hot seat section where we get questions from the public,
Okay.
or questions that we've seen very much happening in our space. And we answer those questions. So that's also in the newsletter, as well as relevant legal changes around the HR space, minimum wages, paid family leave, sick time, all of that is in that newsletter. So it has multiple sections, and then everything kind of flows back to our website where you can read a little bit more about what our thoughts are.
Okay, so I'll put a link to that in the description of this video. I do get your newsletters, and actually, the last one is what prompted me to contact you again to invite you as a guest on this on my channel. So, thank you for sharing your brilliance. You're
Thank
truly
you.
an expert in your field, and very insightful information. And hopefully, we could learn more about you and some of your projects. Maybe we'll do a case study so that people can learn from that in the future. So thank you
Sounds good.
again for joining me today. For those that are new to the channel, I encourage you to subscribe. If you find this video interesting, please share it so others can learn about it. Uh, Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Stephen.
Welcome.